And I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.
Hey everyone, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? Welcome back to another episode of Radical Christianity, the talk show that highlights God in action. I'm Drew, your host, and it is fantastic you are joining us today. Alrighty folks, gather around now for a tale of inclusion, confusion, and a 90-year-old dynamo named Fran. Okay, so the National Multiple Sclerosis Society has told Fran, after 60 years of dedicated volunteer work, to not let the door hit her with a good Lord split her. Why? Well, apparently, Fran committed the cardinal sin of not quite grasping the intricacies of pronouns in emails. Now, I'm no expert, but I'm sure some people find emojis to be equally as perplexing. I once got into trouble when I used what I thought was a chocolate soft serve ice cream emoji. Imagine my surprise when people appeared to be offended by my suggesting they eat some. Come on, it wasn't clear to me at the time what that emoji actually was. And that's a true story. Seriously, can you believe this? Fran, a seasoned volunteer, encounters the mysterious world of pronouns in emails, struggles with it, and then she's asked to step down because she couldn't quite wrap her head around the idea. Now, I don't know about you, but if someone handed me a puzzle in my 90s, I'd probably misplace a few pieces too. Fran's daughter points out the irony. The National MS Society claims to be inclusive while excluding a 90-year-old lady. It's like organizing a potluck and saying, everyone's welcome except Aunt Fran, who can't pronounce quinoa. I think the MS Society might be struggling with the actual meaning of inclusivity. To Fran, the pronouns may have seemed like someone presented a secret spy code without providing a decoder ring. Is this a typo, bad grammar, or what? She probably should have just addressed everyone as dearie and avoided the confusion. Now, Fran's daughter also highlights that multiple sclerosis doesn't discriminate, but apparently the National MS Society does. They might actually be more focused on pronouns than finding a cure. It's like joining a book club to discuss great literature and realizing they only care about the font size. So here's to Fran, the unwitting hero caught in a pronoun conundrum. Let's hope the National MS Society soon realizes that inclusivity means embracing everyone, even if they can't quite decipher the nuances of modern linguistic acrobatics. After all, laughter is the best medicine, and Fran's got a prescription for it. Okay, folks, that's it for now. Tell me, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this next guest is running for Congress, and he's got a lot to say. I hope you are excited as I am for this interview. Let's have a huge, warm welcome for Mike Boudreaux. Yeah. Mike, nice to see you. Have a seat. All right. So, Mike, welcome to Radical Christianity.
I appreciate the invite.
So, pretty excited. I mean, you're taking on a pretty important task ahead of you. So, so what we normally do here is we start with testimony, and then leads that to your ministry and/or public service. In your case, you know what I mean? How those things connect.
Right.
So, please share with us how you met Jesus.
Well, I grew up in a home that required you to go to church 4 days a week. You went on Wednesday night, you went on Friday night, Sunday morning, Sunday night, no excuses.
Yeah, they make the joke that means you're a drug baby. You were drugged to church.
We were drugged to church every week.
Yeah.
And so my mom was a song leader, and my dad was the deacon in the church. And so we were raised in the church environment. As you grow up, as does anybody, you have these moments in time where you fade away from the church and you're where you should be with God and come back. And I found myself like that through the course of my later teenage years, my early 20s, getting into the field of law enforcement. But as you get into the field of law enforcement, you begin to get exposed to really the ugliness that the world has to offer. And you learn real quickly that God's going to be a really important part of what your future holds as long as you put him first.
Yeah.
And for me, I found myself many nights praying in my patrol car, or praying over a family who just lost a loved one, or visiting with victims of crimes and trying to reassure them that God is still here and God is with them and God has not forgotten them. And when people go through those real tragedies, your first emotional impact on something like that is, where is God? Why isn't he with us? And why did this happen to us? And I found myself witnessing to many, many people over the course of my career, from being a patrolman out on the street, having stories just like that, praying over people that have been seriously injured, close to death. And I think it's important as we get into government work and when we find ourselves in emergency services that we truly have believers that are there bringing God into the middle of it. And so my testimony really is a lifelong testimony. It's not one thing that happened one day or something spiritual that happened to me one week. It's a lifelong dedication to Jesus Christ and recognizing that we fail and we sin, but Jesus died on the cross for our sins, and his mercy and grace endures forever, as we know. And I have called upon that many, many times, asking for forgiveness, as well as asking that he use me. And so I've been in law enforcement for 37 years. It'll be 38 years in May. And I have story after story after story where God was in the middle of it. But I also have story after story that when I wasn't walking with him, things would fail.
That's actually a great testimony right there. I mean, you have, obviously we don't have time to dig into deep stories, you know what I mean? But if you have a short story of example of each of those, I think that our viewers can get some good use from that, because there is no bigger impact than showing a direct result of God in your life.
I have story after story, and so I'll tell one that's unique to me. And when we find ourselves drawing close to God, the Bible says that he draws close to us. And the only reason that God is not with us is because we have chosen to step away. God gives us that free will of choice. I've been victim of it, where I wasn't walking right with God. But I do remember a specific story where I'm praying in my patrol car. And the Bible talks about having ears to hear. And many of us think that, well, is that audible? Well, God definitely can speak to us audibly. But I think more so he speaks to our spirit. Because God's a spirit man, we're spirit men, and God speaks to our spirit. Some people call it your conscience or a gut instinct. But what I really think it is that it's God speaking to us. And are you listening and have the ears to hear? And so when we hear that ears to hear, I think it's important for people to understand that sometimes it's just a knowing in your heart of what you're supposed to do. Sometimes that's paying for someone's groceries. Sometimes that's just a friendly handshake and introducing yourself. It could be something as simple as that, all of which I've done at the direction of God and seen the great impacts of that. But one night in my patrol car, it was late at night, it ended up being late at night, but it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I was driving down a road that I normally don't drive down. And I just got a knowing in my spirit to travel a certain way. And so I did. And I was praying, and I realized that I felt that God was directing me. And so I come up to a stop sign, and I get ready to go, and my spirit says, don't go. So I paused at the stop sign. And as I paused, a car drove in front of me, and I could see there was some type of struggle or something happening with inside the car. I wasn't real sure. It was nighttime, but I could see that the driver was not really relaxed. I couldn't tell if there was anyone else in the car. And so after the car went on, I got, okay, now. And so I'm listening, and I follow this car. And now I know I'm supposed to follow this car. And as I follow the car, it makes a couple different turns. And in law enforcement, you can't just stop a car because you want to stop a car. You have to have what's called probable cause, or you have good, reasonable suspicion that something's not right and potentially could be a crime, or there's a minor violation of the law, which allows you to make a traffic stop. And so I'm following this car, and I can see the driver doing something in the car that appears to be violent. But I really can't see anybody else other than him in the car. So I'm thinking, well, does he have a mental health issue? Is he drunk? What is this guy doing? And so now I see he's kind of swerving in the road, which gives me my probable cause to stop for the safety of everyone around. And also he has a tail light out, which is more legal reasons to stop. And there was a variety of other little things that as law enforcement we recognized that were violations, and I stopped the car. And I had someone riding in the car with me that night, a young explorer. And as I approached the driver, I looked at his eyes, and in the floorboard of the car was a young girl. She ended up being 11 years old. And I looked down at her, and I could see the fear in her eyes. And I looked at him, and basically knew something was wrong. And I turned and said, "Young lady, are you okay?" And she whimpered and started crying. And so I pulled him out of the car right away, put handcuffs on him. I knew something was wrong. So the explorer that was with me went around the other side, and he said, "Deputy, this girl's just been kidnapped." And what had happened is this man had kidnapped her out of her front yard. She was out front playing. And a man had driven up, kidnapped her. Well, the parents hadn't even had time to dial 911. What did they start doing? They start praying. Those parents were in the yard praying for the safety of their child, not realizing that she had even been kidnapped. She just knew that they knew she was gone.
Right.
And so if we have the ears to hear, if we're spending time with God, if he's drawing near to us, he's going to use us. And in that situation, it stands out so hugely for me because I remember at the time praying and drawing close to him. And he used me in that situation. Now, those parents' prayers were answered, but had I not had ears to hear, God would have picked someone else. He would have not allowed the prayers of those families to go unnoticed.
Right.
And so I think that's important for people to hear, that when you know you're supposed to do something, don't be embarrassed to do it. It may mean nothing to you, but it's answered prayers for someone else.
Yeah. That's a pretty awesome story. So let's flip it.
Okay.
A story of when you weren't walking right and things didn't go well.
Well, I can tell you that I wasn't following God. I was hanging around the wrong people, drinking every weekend, and my career path began to take a spiral down. I began to be seen as kind of the wild child that couldn't be given responsibility for bigger tasks, and I found myself focusing more on my friends and partying and not really being with God. And so I know that during the course of that time, that one is you begin to develop a reputation of someone who is not responsible. One that cares more about what's going on the outside than the workload or the family. And my family was impacted, in a negative way. My work was impacted in a negative way. And it really took a situation where it was a shock and awe, where, I was finding myself in trouble more than I was doing good because I love the job. I love the community. And I turned back to God. I got back in the church. And as I got back into the church, I realized some of the things needed to go away. The partying had to leave. The drinking had to stop. And hanging out with the people who were bad influences on me needed to go away. And the minute that I began focusing back on the church, back on God, back around people who are like-minded, prayer warriors, and I had people praying for me. I had my mom and my aunt, my dad, and everyone was praying for me. And those prayers didn't go unnoticed. And I had a couple things that put me into a bit of a tailspin and a shock to put me back on the right path. And as I got back on the right path, as I say, those other things began to fade and become less and less important to me. I didn't need to hang around those people who were a bad influence. I got away from alcohol completely. I began hanging out with people who were Christ-like minded. And during the course of that time, I ended up in a divorce. And so I got right back into God. And as I did, and I prayed and focused myself, I ended up meeting a person who is a Christ follower, who's my wife today. We've been together for over 21 years, and we have 2 teenage children together, and God blessed me doubly once I got back on the right path. But I was on a tailspin for destruction had I not, refocused my life. And so I'm blessed, and thank goodness his mercy endures forever. And once I got back into that streamline, I ended up being blessed, back on where I need to be. I ended up being promoted several times over within the agency. Ended up with a wife who loves me and has given me 2 wonderful children and a family, and we're doubly blessed because of that. And I promoted all the way up to the ranks of captain and undersheriff in our agency's second command, and eventually elected into the position of sheriff. Now, if I wasn't trusted and God didn't trust me, I wouldn't be sitting here.
Right.
Anybody who God chooses is going to be put into a position like this. A position of sheriff is, I have 1,000 people who work for me. I provide public safety for an entire county. And I come up with these innovative, creative ideas in our agency. And people will often say, Sheriff, what a great idea. And I always say, it's not my idea. This is God's work. God's given me the idea. Here's what we're going to do. And last year, we reached over 30,000 children with free sports programs.
Nice.
And these are things that God does. And if we realize that, because we all go through those troublesome times, right? Even in our daily walk, we get frustrated. We yell at the driver who cut us off, or we're mad at somebody who said some nasty rumor or gossip about you, and whatever that may be. And God recognizes that we're human beings. That's why he died on the cross for our sins. That we go, okay, God, I messed up. I ask forgiveness. Put me where I need to be. And what do I need to do now? And I find that be true in my entire career. Even in my daily walk now. Coming here, I prayed. On the way to work, I prayed. Let me be a blessing to somebody. Let me do your work. And then I also found myself making sinful mistakes on the way. And so none of us are perfect, and I realize that. But we're always striving, right, for those works that are perfect. And the reality of it is, it's not works that does it. It's just leaning and recognizing him as your personal Savior.
Yes, definitely. So we don't have a whole lot of time left.
Sure.
A couple minutes or so. The district that you cover would be?
Well, I am running for the congressional district number 20 in California.
Okay.
And it's a big district.
Right.
And I've been traveling all over, visiting with as many people in the district as I can. And it goes from Clovis down into Lemoore, Hanford, Visalia, Tulare, scoots into the mountains, down into Bakersfield. Then from Bakersfield all the way through to Tehachapi, Rosemont, and Ridgecrest.
Okay.
Pretty big district.
Yeah.
And so I've been campaigning for the last 50 days now. The election comes up on March 5th, and your absentee ballots will be in the mail. Please fill them out. Mark Mike Boudreaux, he'd be a good one. And then there's another ballot that should come for March 19th. It's confusing to voters because March 5th is for the year 25-26.
Right.
Into November for that election. And then McCarthy had stepped down early, so March 19th is another ballot that needs to be filled out to finish his term for the year 24.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the one on the 19th. So the one on the 5th is the primary ballot, and that would be for the upcoming election.
For the general in November.
The general in November. Mm-hmm. And then the one on the 19th is for
the special election.
The special election.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that is confusing.
It is confusing.
But it's a good thing they didn't put the special election first, because then people would probably not vote in the primary.
They probably would not.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff going on within this election that is confusing to people. And we started with 11 candidates, and we're down to about 4 now. I've received the endorsement of Sheriff Margaret Mims and John Zanoni. 4 of the 5 Clovis City Council have endorsed me. And I have a laundry list of endorsements. Kash Patel has endorsed me, as well as Rick Grinnell. Those are both national security advisors and chief of staff for President Trump at the time. Sheriff Mark Lamb, as well as Bakersfield Police Officers Association and Clovis Police Officers Association. And
really, if you're down to 4
yeah.
right now, there's going to be just those 4. What happens because there's going to be more than those 4 on the ballot, right?
There will be. There will be. So make sure you do your research. You don't want to vote for someone who has decided to suspend their sentence. David Giglio was one of the people up front. He decided to suspend his suspend his campaign. I think I said suspended sentence, didn't I?
You did.
Yeah,
That's fine.
that's a cop thing and a judge thing. Sorry, I went into my cop world. But it's a suspended campaign, and David Giglio has now endorsed me as well. And there's a few other people on that list that have now endorsed me. And so your vote matters. I think God's
And
doing.
you really just got to make the top 2 in that election.
Just got to make the top 2.
Right.
Yeah, we're hoping for close numbers, but we'll see. You know, I really believe God is working in our country right now. I think that there's good things happening across the country, and he's going to put his people in place. Whether that's me or whether it's somebody else, I'm not here to say God has chosen me. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that he wants godly people in position to do his work.
Yeah, and the truth of the matter is, you know, we can't second guess God.
We cannot.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And everybody who is put into a position of leadership and power is God's doing.
Right.
You know, we could, you know, say, oh well, God didn't do it. We could try and talk all that, but the Bible's really clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. No, and I agree. And so I pray every day. I pray for the people of California. I pray for the people of America, and it's time that we take America back. And if you look at, you know, the story I tell a lot is that this country was founded on prayers to God. George Washington took the House of Representatives next door to a small church before their session and prayed over this country. And that church still stands in New York. That's where the Capitol was at the time. And that church, when the Twin Towers came down, only suffered a couple broken windows. And I think that God is still honoring the prayers of George Washington. If you take a look at the Supreme Court, above the Supreme Court, go ahead and Google it, look it up. Above the Supreme Court, there's these people that are molded into the top of the Supreme Court building. And the one right in the middle, you know who that is?
Not offhand.
It's Moses carrying the Ten Commandments.
Really? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's awesome.
And they can't ever get rid of that. God's here, and he's not going to let this country just fade into what it's becoming.
You know, one of the things that always stuck with me when I was in actually, it was a junior high moment that led the discussion that I kept with me, and that is, you know, when this country was, people first came here, you know what I mean, from Europe, they're getting away from King George, was pursuing the ability to read the Bible and go to church and congregate.
Hence the First Amendment.
Yeah. And I mean, it's I mean, freedom of religion is, you know, is important. I mean, it's important to protect our faith. Obviously, it's also important that we respect other people's faith politically. But this country was founded on, you know, the pursuit of, you know, of Jesus and God.
It was founded on the true and living God.
Yeah.
I had a reporter ask me, I said the same thing. I said, we need God back in this country. And she said, well, there's many gods. You know, which one is yours? I was so offended because this is where we've gotten to. A country that was founding on the true and living God. There's only one true and living God. Buddha is not living. No. Right? He's not living. But our God is living. And that's the difference.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I love, we don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but I love the opportunity to discuss, you know, why God is God. You know, I don't get it often enough. Like people like, you know, sense right off the hand that they're, you know what I mean, that they don't want to have that discussion with me. So I, you know, like they've stepped back. Every once in a while, an atheist thinks he can come at me, and I'm like, yeah. But I'm dying to have the why the Messiah discussion with a hardcore, you know, Jewish Talmud type of guy. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, we can go into so many things here. I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I really believe that, you know, if I make the position of the Congress in the 20th, that I will always support Israel. Israel is God's chosen people, and they're surrounded by their enemies. It's the only country in the world surrounded by their enemies like they are, and yet they survive. Right? They survive because God's taken care of them. And there's no other country in the world where people call for their complete annihilation. Israel's the only one. You don't see any other country where people are calling for the annihilation of those people but Israel. And those people, when you have Syria, Yemen, you have Egypt, Jordan, all surrounding Israel. And it's very well known in Iran and as well as the Hezbollah and Hamas and the terrorist organizations. They say that once they're done with Israel, they're coming for the second Israel. And the second Israel is the United States. So there's a lot we could discuss. When it comes to our borders, they need to be secure. Lots of different things that need to be discussed. And you need to have a tough candidate with real life experiences to be put in that position.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We have a thing that we say here, and is that you're definitely rad for Christ. You're definitely fired up for Jesus, and we love to see that here.
Thank you, sir.
Mike, if there's anything that you need that we can do here for you on the show, please don't hesitate to let us know. And hopefully you get the election, and we can bring you back.
I hope so.
To talk
and
about
I'll
your
come
victory.
Back. Yeah. God bless. Thank you.
God bless. Housekeeping time. Yes, housekeeping time is the time that Drew gets to sit here and look awkward as anything as he tries to ask you guys for money. It's not in my character or my nature. I'm not very good at that. Maybe someday I will be, and will stop making fun of me as I do this. But until then, I feel like an idiot, so I'm going to move forward doing that. Anyway, it would be awesome, since we operate on donation here at Radical Christianity, that if you have $5, $10, $15, $20, $25, $100, whatever it is that God has on your heart to share, we would love it if you could share it with us and this show, so that we can present you with the best possible show that we are able to do. If you need to do that, you can just go to our website, radforchrist.com. That's RAD, the number 4, Christ.com, and click on the donate link at the top of the webpage. That'll take you to the Mr. E Christian Media donation page on PayPal. You can just select Radical Christianity from the drop-down list and put in whatever dollar value God has put on your heart to share with us. Mr. E Christian Media is a 501c3 nonprofit charity, which means that your donation will be tax deductible. So keep that in mind, and I hope that God has put some figure on your heart that will help you to cheerfully share it with us, because God does love a cheerful giver. And if you cannot share any money, if you're not capable of doing that, there are a lot of other ways that you can partner with God to help this show out. And that would be, one would be to share this show on social media. Whatever social media you use, or several ones that you use, whichever. Or tell a family member, or have someone sit down and watch it with you, or email the show to somebody, or talk to people at work about it. Spread the word for us. That would be very, very helpful. And you know what would really help? If you're a prayer, you know what? Just pray for us here on the show, that we'll have health and safety, and we'll be able to keep doing this show for the people that need to watch it. Because there are lives getting changed watching this show. We've had a lot of people accept Jesus. We have seen lives alter. We have stopped some tragic situations, and it's actually not us doing it. It's God doing it through us. And it's because of people like you who are praying for us and sharing the show and that kind of thing. So please, we could use your help. God can definitely make use of your willingness to partner with him for this show's help. Thank you very much for watching Radical Christianity, and on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is doing some good things. He is got a heart for Jesus and a heart to serve. So let's have a huge warm welcome for Solomon Verduzco. Hey, Solomon. Welcome. Please have a Solomon, welcome to Radical Christianity. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Drew. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, this is a great opportunity. So you're going to be running for state assembly this year, and you're running against
Joaquin
Arambula, and he's a generational politician and left-leaning. And he apparently he's not spending much time in town.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like he's campaigning, talking to the people at all. He thinks it's going to be a piece of cake election cycle, and I'm going to bring the fight to him.
Well, yeah, and you said you just turned 21?
Yeah, I just turned 21 last October.
So you're a young gun ready to put at the Dukes, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I got the fire in me, I got the energy, and I'm ready to talk to these people and represent them the way they're supposed to be represented.
So how do you feel about your knowledge on the laws and stuff like that? You know what I mean? Because obviously, if you get stuck in a debate, how are you gonna? Are you geared up? Are you ready? Or?
Yeah, I'm definitely geared up. I've been studying public policy for 5 years, and I've been studying just law itself since I was like a freshman, sophomore, when I was, decided, hey, I want to become a lawyer. And, that pulled me into politics, and politics became a second passion. And it's just something that I really want to do where I could actually help people in my community who are struggling, who are in the middle class, lower class, and I want to represent them accurately.
All right, well, that's fantastic. So you guys pay attention. This guy's he's got a future. He's got to keep pushing, you know. So what we normally do here is we start with testimony and how that led to your ministry or public service. So please tell us how you met Jesus.
Yeah, so when I was younger, we grew up Roman Catholic like a lot of Hispanics do. And, I got baptized when I was an infant, went to catechism at St. John, just right here, downtown Fresno. And I just asked a lot of questions. And, I kept asking questions. They weren't really able to answer it. They always just said it's just the way it is. So it kind of pushed me away from the church for a little bit. So when I was, an adolescent, technically still am, but when I started getting a little bit older, I just wasn't really into church, from around, maybe 12 to like 17, 18. But I was working at GB3 on Palm and Knees, and there's a wonderful manager there named Christine. And she's been tied with God for a long time. And she just helped me. I asked her questions. She was able to answer. I started to realize the importance of God in life. And she got me my first Bible in my adult life for Christmas in 2020. And that's when I really started to dig in deep and start realizing, like, wow, like, Christianity is the fundamental principles that we use in our day-to-day life. It's what built our country. It's what built the modern world. Built the Industrial Revolution. I mean, it's done so much for humanity, and it's something that should be cherished and should be important. And so I started asking more questions, and I started digging real deep into my faith. And I started praying every day, doing the Our Father prayer, thanking God at any moment I can, starting to live like Jesus and trying to, try to be selfless. We're human, so of course we fall short, but I'm trying to stay on the path of, okay, what would Jesus do in this situation? And that's how I kind of go about my daily life. And recently I came back to the Roman Catholic Church. I started asking more questions, learned a little bit more about church history, and, read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I started to realize, like, okay, I think, the true church is the Roman Catholic Church. So I started looking into that. And, I'm still learning. So, of course, I could always come back to Protestant or, whatever it may be. But for a fact, I am a Christian.
Yeah. Well, the Catholic Church, that would be, what they consider Peter was the first pope.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
What I mean? So, it's we don't try to fall too much on denomination around here.
Yeah.
But we definitely understand where the Catholic Church is coming from. And and the Catholic Church has been fundamental in moving society forward for a very long time.
Yeah, definitely.
So there's no anybody who wants to thumb up at the at the Catholic Church. It's like you're making a mistake. I mean, there's for anything that you can find bad, there's 10 good things.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's I mean you're gonna pick on the biggest church of what I mean. It's like what I mean. It's easy to pick on that.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course they've made mistakes over the years.
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff, and taken some weird stances and gone a little political versus faith based in some choices. But all that aside, you know what I mean. It still the core message is we all need Jesus.
Exactly.
And we want to get people to heaven. It's about, the Catholic Church is stronger on service than pretty much any other church that I've seen. Protestant churches are good.
Yeah.
But the Catholic Church is hardcore on service, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The only problem I have is having someone between me and God when it comes to like confession and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I definitely struggled with. Mm-hmm. And I do agree with you.
Yeah. I understand why. You know what I mean? Because the Catholic Church takes an approach that is supposed to be all-encompassing. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who, especially, when the Catholic Church was established, did not read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, reading was very scarce back then.
Right, and people were uncomfortable, talking in public about that stuff. So the confessional became a safe place to talk to your priest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's a man-made construction. That's not,
Yeah.
That's not like ordained from heaven or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's nowhere in the Bible. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's like,
definitely.
Yeah. So anyway, so what was the turning point moment that made you say, hey, you know what? I need to focus on Jesus. We all have that
Yeah, I think it's just the day-to-day struggles, honestly. You know, I wouldn't say I lived a particularly bad life. My parents always provided for me. They always instilled God is at the forefront, at the forefront of everything. And I think what I just realized was I was getting older, and I started realizing there's a lot of tough things in life. And it's really hard for individuals to battle these tough things by themselves. And then when I look for help, sometimes my dad can't answer it, sometimes my mom can't answer it, but one person that I always can is Jesus Christ. You know, I open up the Bible. I like to look at it as a blueprint for life. Every single type of scenario you think you could be in, if you look in the Bible, somebody's went through it. It's a test of time and really showing you how to deal with things, how to process things. I think it makes, if people adopt Jesus Christ, it makes it a lot more easier for them to navigate through life and cope with the bad things that happen and not just, fall into depression or have anxiety, because that's the devil attacking you. And if you're closer with God, he can't attack you and you won't experience those things that a lot of people in our society sadly do.
Yeah, definitely a relationship with Jesus Christ is not guaranteed, but it's definitely a pathway to more joy and peace in life. Yeah, that's for definite sure. Okay, so how did all that lead you into wanting to do politics? How do you connect faith and politics?
Yeah, so I guess politics got to me first before faith because, again, freshman, sophomore year, I decided I wanted to become a lawyer. So I've been starting to work for that. And then I've been studying public policy. And then I started to realize, what am I on the political spectrum? Growing up Hispanic, they've always said, okay, we're Democrat just because we're Mexican. And I was like, okay, and I accepted that until, I was around 18, 19. And I started seeing these videos from a political commentator named Steven Crowder, and he had to change my mind. Where basically he had a table and he would go out into campus communities and basically just do a particular topic and say, whatever it be, change my mind. And he'll sit down with the opposite side of people on the political spectrum. And I started to realize, wow, I agree with every single thing this guy's saying, and so does my family. That's when I found out, okay, I'm a conservative. So I started looking into what a conservative means. A conservative is somebody who believes in God, who follows God, and follows Christ. And so
that's a Christian conservative, right?
Yeah, Judeo-Christian values for the most part. But yeah, I was like, okay, I'm conservative. So how can I reinforce my political beliefs? Okay, it's getting into faith. And that's when 2020, 2021, where my manager at GB3, where I was working at, she was helping me get into my faith, answering a lot of questions. And all these questions basically backed my philosophy in politics, because you have to have some type of morality and you have to get it from somewhere, and that could only be from God because it's an objective morality.
Yeah, morality comes from God. That's one of those things that they've already determined.
Yeah,
that's a lot of people will try and argue.
Yeah, there's an objective morality.
But there's a core morality that exists inside all of us, and it's like that isn't something that just comes by mutation.
Nature or anything.
Yeah, that doesn't come by mutation. That comes, what I mean.
It comes from something above all of us, which would be God.
Right. Exactly. That's why you could have a tribe that has been held alone in Africa for 20, 30, 40 generations, that has no influence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they've developed the same morality for the most part. I mean, there's obviously some differences. But,
and then a lot of people in Western society just don't believe that. They think it's all subjective, but then it's not. There's an objective morality because then.
Well, for the most part, people don't want to. People feel like they want to be in control. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We've definitely moved into a secular society.
We have free will, but we don't have control. You know what I mean? So it's the challenge obviously is to interact with people and try to help them understand the differences and let them make the decision for themselves. I find that most discussions are just seed planting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because someone's all like, well, like an atheist, they're like all, oh well, if God made all this stuff, then where'd God come from? And you're like, God's eternal.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, why can't the universe be eternal? Because we've proven the universe started at a certain point.
There was a beginning part, and
they're all like, well, how do you know it didn't just all this didn't happen? Like, well, how are you going to get life from non-life?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
it's like you have these questions, and they don't have any of the answers to it.
Yeah.
They just want to throw questions.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And because they don't want to believe, and the reason why they don't want to believe is because when you believe that there's a God, and you know what I mean, you understand that there's a creator, then that means that there's a purpose.
Yeah, definitely.
And if there's a purpose, that means that there's a responsibility. and then you can't just go and just live your life willy-nilly, do whatever you want,
Yeah, and
hurt people.
It's the sin of selfishness, and it's people wanting to live for themselves and do what they want to do instead of doing what's better for everybody.
Right, and awareness of God doesn't necessarily fix that itself. It's actually a devotion and study that does, because if you look at the Old Testament Israelites, they,
yeah, definitely not a great group of.
They went back and forth quite a bit.
Yeah.
They got smited over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, you go through the Old Testament, it's crazy how many people have failed God, but then that should be looked at as like, okay, let me not do this. My name being Solomon, I've read about King Solomon. His greatest downfall was he was trying to be with a bunch of women, and it's the lessons that you can learn from these people in the past and take them into your life. And if you avoid all these things that they made, then you'll be able to live a successful life in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that success is always subjective from people to people. Some people would consider success just, a nice family and comfort. Some people would think success is, achieving, large goals.
Yeah.
Some people would think that, okay, success is, personally, I would put, if you were to say success, I would say, systematically and fundamentally being used by God in a way that is, makes a difference.
Yeah.
That I would consider that successful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas, it's like everybody's got a different idea of what their, idea of success is. You know what I mean? But, there's a, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Mighty Men movement, but they putting on a prayer breakfast, once a month right now, and it's called Success to Significance. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of drawing the line. Okay, well, here's success, whatever in business or life or whatever, but significance is a different level. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's a good way to look at things. So.
Yeah. I mean, that reminds me. I actually wrote it down. But one of my favorite verses is, let's see, I got it right here, is Acts 20:24. I'm not sure if you've memorized it. I haven't. But my life is worth nothing to me unless I use it for finishing the work assigned me by the Lord Jesus, the work of telling others the good news about the wonderful grace of God. And I think I try to use that in my campaign every time. Every time I speak, every time I talk, I try to bring up Christ. I speak about how much he's worked in my life and has helped me. Because again, like planting seeds, I want to be able to talk to people and say, look, Christ is the way. Christ is going to help you. And planting these seeds might help them down the line from whenever they find Christ.
Yeah. And it's important that we have, that we understand that we have leaders of faith that are devoted in their faith and they're not just talking the statements.
Yeah.
It happens, especially in our party, it happens. But it happens a lot. Yeah. But the truth of the matter is that a man who really is trying to put Jesus first in his life and trying to be a good servant of God will legislate through the lens of Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, I've been asked multiple times, like, what are you going to do when you come through, a tough problem that you just truly don't know, or how are you going to be different than every other politician? And, I constantly think, WWJD is what would Jesus do? And I truly believe having that as my guiding principle, what I do in my day-to-day life and what I do being a politician, I think that would really help me and keep me on track, because a lot of politicians, they get into politics and they start losing, their faith, and they start veering off that path and start, servicing other people who are donating to them or to just get them reelected. And I think that's going to, definitely rot our society, and we need politicians who are close with God, because, again, that's where we get our morality from, and we need to make laws that align with our morality, and it's going to do greater for our nation.
Yeah, and in all reality, I think it's important we have some politicians that are not Christian as well, because how are you going to find those to witness to? You know what I mean? If you just have one army of Christians leading, then it's, it sounds like a good thing, you know what I mean? But big picture, you know what I mean? This is just our temporary home.
Yeah,
you know
definitely,
yeah. But it is important that we have Christian leaders. It is very important that we have Christian leaders. I think it's good that we have a mix, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the beauty is that the mix will allow Jesus to come out more.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where I'm sure a lot of people would probably disagree with me. They're like, "Oh, every leader should be Christian." You know what I mean? And I'm like, it's like we live in a country.
Yeah, that's very diverse. Not everyone believes the same
it's also
exact thing.
based on freedom of religion.
Yeah.
And if we want freedom of religion for us, we also have to
allow
accept freedom of religion for other people, or freedom to not have religion for other people.
Yeah. I mean,
it's their choice. It's not their relationship with God is not our problem.
Yeah.
So politics is a whole nother level on that. So you kind of have to which is awesome that you're getting into it and you're going into it with faith. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely helped throughout my whole entire campaign, and just to kind of share a little bit of my experience and how God has helped me and what I've done. So going into this, I'm 21 years old. I don't have a business under my name. I don't have anything. I don't have a ton of money. So I had to reach the filing fee. I think it was like December 16th. And I want to say December 1st, I was like, man, where am I going to get this $1,200 to, pay for this filing fee? I don't want to pay $1,200 myself. So I just prayed to God, and, I sat there and I said, God, I want to serve you. I want to make sure I'm doing what you want me to do. And if you want me to pursue this political career and help people and lead people to Christ and make our country better, help me, please. Like I'm reaching out, I'm leaning on you. And then a few days later, I just get a call from aunts that I haven't talked to in years, and they both send me the full amount of the filing fee. And then fast forward to about January, I was like, God, I'm coming back here again. I don't know how I'm going to reach these voters. I don't know how I'm going to get my name out there. Not too many people are believing me. Not too many people are, donating. Like I need your help. Can you guide me? Can you help me? But again, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's all your plan. On a random Tuesday, I want to say the next week, a random guy I don't know, he's a manager at Satin Farms, donates me $5,500. And, it really shows that when you pray and you are close with God and you're constantly talking to him and you're constantly serving him, he will give you the fruits that you need, but he's not going to give you the fruits that you don't need.
Yeah, he usually gives you the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But there are people that get more than the bare minimum. You know what I mean? And but let's not go down to that rabbit hole. So the opportunity to take a position. Now, your district we were talking about is from Bullard.
Yeah, south of Bullard.
And goes to Kings.
Yeah, go to Kings, yeah.
And then you have Sanger to what?
So just a little bit past Sanger to Orange Cove, and then all the way to the left, about a mile or two to the left of the 99.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the best way to describe it.
Right. So that is the heart of Fresno and Clovis, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not really you're missing some of North Clovis.
Yeah,
and some of North Fresno. But the heart of Fresno and Clovis is your district.
Yeah. I think it goes a little bit out of Clovis. They actually carved out them in 2020 because it was starting to swing a lot of elections to the right. So they redistricted. So I'm just missing Clovis.
The whole city?
Yeah.
Wow. So what happens because Clovis Avenue and 4th, that would be where Bullard is.
Yeah, so what it does is it goes down south to, where on Clovis Avenue, right there by the airport, it's south of that. So it doesn't go actually up until Clovis.
So they redistricted it to sway it in a way.
In a particular, and mostly to the Democrat swinging.
Yeah. That's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, it is insane. They also did that in the congressional district as well.
Yeah, that we should have a little bit more population-based formatting, not how they, you know what I mean? Not,
definitely. I think
how people vote and their racial or financial demographics should not be a factor on lining up districts.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and you could tell.
Well, it makes sense for the people who are trying to take advantage of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's always good when you're on the other side.
But I mean, it's like there's nothing better than a fair fight.
Yeah,
you know
definitely.
I mean? So it's like if the districts are drawn fair and the people that live there sway it, then that would be
accurate representation.
The accurate representation and the natural function of it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's just
politics.
Yeah, it's just politics. It is, and that's the kind of thing that makes people really disgusted by politics.
Yeah, definitely. I mean? A lot of people I talk to, they're not very fond of it. They're like, it's all rigged anyways. Like, we shouldn't even vote. But I think, if we all have that mindset, then you're just allowing the evil powers to take over. I think we got to stay here and fight, and we got to work together and come together as a community. And I want to say most people agree on things than they disagree. So I think we all have, an idea of what a great community will be and a great Fresno. It's just we got to start electing that way as well.
Yeah. So how do you feel about people not solving problems so that they can continue to argue about them?
I mean, yeah, I think it's a disservice to the people. I think, these are people's livelihoods that they're playing with. These are people who have to actually live by the laws. You look at California, 6 out of 10 people want to move out of California, but they can't because of the financial burden. We've seen the largest migration out of California we've seen in history.
A lot of people have moved to Texas.
Yeah, moving to Texas, moving to Florida, moving to these red states. Mm-hmm. But what people are missing is the reason why you're moving to a red state is because of politics. They think, it's just a better life over here just because. But no, it's the way that you elect, and your vote does matter. And if enough of us get together and we work towards a common good, we could start weeding out these people who are doing nothing since they've been elected, and get people who want to fight and make change, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah, when people try to run away from something to go somewhere else, I can understand that, but I mean, if you really want to make a difference, if you care about the place that you're running away from, or considering running away from, that's where you're making your biggest mistake. You know what I mean? Because, first of all, California is the most populated state in the union.
Yeah.
And it is the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah, uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So if you want to sway the way the world looks at stuff, you have to, stick your feet in and take a stand.
Yeah, definitely you got to pick your belt up, tie it in, and get ready.
Because no secret I'm a Republican. You know what I mean? I'm a conservative Republican.
Yeah.
Not conservative by label, conservative by truth. What it really means, like old school conservative, Lincoln era conservative, Reagan era conservative.
Yeah, definitely.
Family values. Not rushing into something stupid, making sure that you're a good steward of the finances available to you, all that kind of stuff. That's true conservative policy, which doesn't seem to be as prevalent as it used to be. But people used to tell me how do you why are you a Republican? Why do you how can you stand for this and how can you stand for that? When you I'm like, well, how can I, fix the Republican Party if I'm not part of it?
Yeah, yeah, because then you leave and then it's the same thing either way. You have to be the fighters.
If you abandon it, you're giving it up to the people that are going to take advantage of that situation.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that, in my family, they weren't super into politics, and that's what I've noticed. A lot of people aren't really into politics. They live their daily life where they have to go to work. They have to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and they have to provide for their family. And, the thing on the top of their mind isn't politics. It's, okay, how am I going to feed my family tomorrow? How am I going to make sure the lights stay on? How am I going to make sure there's a roof over my kid's head? So I think it's important in my campaign where I'm going to educate these people and tell them, hey, look, politics is determining all these things. The reason why the cost of housing is so high is because of the laws passed by the Democrats. It's the reason why we have such a bad homelessness problem, have the most homeless population in the whole entire nation, is because of policies passed by the Democrats. And I think what it is really showing them the truth, because, you see headlines. The headlines demonize the people on the right. They demonize Christians. But when you actually break down the issues to them and actually explain it and have a conversation with them, they start realizing that, these people aren't fools. They're smart. They know they know common sense. So they're going to be able to realize, okay, this is bad. Let me stop voting this way and start voting with their values instead of labels like Republican or Democrat.
Yeah. How do you feel about people voting party line?
Party line?
Yeah, where it's like, okay, well, we're all Democrats, so we're just going to vote this way. We're all Republicans, so we're going to vote this way.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Because that's something that's more prominent now than when I first started voting. When I first started voting, you would have, some people, Republicans, going this way with an idea, along with some Democrats, and then some people would agree this way and go that way. And it would be more based on where they lived in the United States versus their party line.
Yeah, I would say get to know every single candidate that you're going to try to vote. I try to educate people on each candidate, because it's like, you don't want to just vote red all the way when one Republican is, not trying to actually do the same thing that you're valuing, because what you have to do is you have to vote with your values. That's what I like to tell people. You don't vote just because, for example, it's Donald Trump or whatever. If he's actually done something wrong, then he's actually done something wrong. But if he hasn't, he hasn't. And go look at these values instead and look at their track record and what they've done in the past and say, okay, I like this guy. I've seen what he's done. I'm going to vote this way. And, honestly, if you vote Democrat for some people and vote Republican for other seats, that's completely fine. If they align best with your values, because they're supposed to be representative of you, the voter.
Yeah, a lot of people will, if they're not voting party line, they'll use the whole lesser of two evils argument.
Yeah, you hear that so often.
Yeah, and the problem with the lesser of two evils argument is you're approaching the evils of everybody as a factor. And a lot of, especially with media the way it is these days, you don't know if what you're hearing that's negative is actually factual unless you take the time to research it yourself. And who does that?
Yeah. Very. There's a small amount of people that actually do that, but I think that's why I'm sure podcasts like yours. I try to do it on my social medias. We try and spread the truth and try to tell people the honest truth of what's going on in our world. I think that's important. We need people that have integrity and aren't going to corrupt their morals, to get a bigger platform or to fall up into, the hierarchy. We need people who are going to deliver the truth to these people and people who they could trust. And, that's why I always tell people, like, look, you don't have to listen to me. Just do your own research. But this is what I'm saying. And then I try to lay down the facts and try to explain to them, why either the way they're thinking, the way they're voting right now is wrong, or why I'm, voting the right way and trying to advocate for the best.
Well, we are totally out of time. But thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
We're definitely going to watch your progress. You're just starting the game. If this doesn't work out, come back and fight again, man.
Yeah, it's never going to stop. The leading God's mission never ends until my last breath. So that's something I'm forever going to do.
We have a saying here: you're definitely rad for Christ. You're definitely fired up for Jesus, and we love to see that
Thank
here.
you so much.
We want to wish you good luck, and
Thank you.
You'll have my vote, man. So.
I appreciate it, Drew. I really do. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for another episode of Radical Christianity. It means so much to me that you were here. These guys are both trying to do huge things for the community and for Jesus at the same time, and that's a heavy lift if you really ask me. So I hope that they reached you, and if you're in their area, that you hopefully you'll want to support them, because I think they're great guys. So I want to talk to that person right now who is watching this show, who is, feeling Jesus tug on their heart. I know I do this every week, but every week there is somebody out there who is going through this. And I just know it's true. And I want to reach out to you right now. Jesus is there, and he is tugging on your heart, and it is the best decision you could ever make to accept Jesus into your life. I know you're going through some terrible stuff. We all do. We're all broken. We all sin and suffer. And, Jesus can heal. He can bring you peace. He really can. So if you are trying to find that peace, just reach out to Jesus. You will never regret it. You just say to Jesus, Jesus, I need you. Come into my life, change me, turn me into the person that you have designed me to be. I accept that you have a better way than me. Let me lay down my way and take up your way. I need you. Come into my heart and lead me on the path that you want me to take. If you say something along those lines, anything that comes from your heart, just say those. Because it says in Romans 10:9 that if you say with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God rose him from the dead, you will be saved. That's just it. You'll be saved. And if you said that, I want to welcome you to the family of God. I honestly do. I think it's the best decision you could ever make in your entire life. And if you did that decision while watching this show, a rerun, or a broadcast, please go to our website, radforchrist.com. That's RAD4 Christ.com. And there's a form there. It says Got Saved. I would appreciate it if you would go in that form and let us know. And so I could send you a Bible and a little gift. A lot of you have been reaching out to tell me through social media, but we did create a form there for you, and you can please use that too. So anyway, we also have some other forms on the website. You can ask a question. You can have a prayer request. If there's something that you need question-wise or prayer request-wise, please reach out to us. We are here to serve. And this is the most important part. and that is Jesus Christ loves you. So do I. Thank you for watching Radical Christianity. We will see you next week.
And I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.